Talk Show. I'm your host, Brad West. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Greg Burrow from Dragons Are Comic Fantasy in Anderson Lane here in Austin, Texas. Make sure you check them out. And then the lovely Miss Anastasia Anderson. And we are going to be talking about Venom. Venom, the Marvel Comics character who first appeared in the 90s and
80s.
80. Well, okay.
80s.
Yeah,
Eddie Brock.
1984 as the alien costume, and then
Yes.
1988 as Venom himself.
Really? That early?
Yes.
Wow, okay. I didn't really start collecting until the 90s, so I guess I just...
Right, you were like, it's the 90s.
Yeah,
thing.
okay.
What are you talking about?
So he's earlier than I thought of. Nonetheless, we are going to be talking about Venom in preparation for his sequel movie coming out this week on the 1st. We're going to give you our review of that at the end of the week, so make sure that you are prepared for the spoilers. But until then, we're going to give you a little bit of history about Venom in the comic books. Venom first started his life out as the alien symbiote, or the alien costume. They didn't originally know that he was a symbiote to start with. But I do want to throw a little bit of fun trivia out there for you that a lot of people don't realize. There was actually already a very similar character that appeared many years earlier in the Fantastic Four comic books. His name was Dreadface. Dreadface was an alien that they encountered that was a dark, shadowy, symbiotic life form that even called itself a symbiote. And it followed the Fantastic Four back to Earth, and it bonded with a gorilla or something before eventually taking over a human form. And it was a warlike being that referred to itself as a symbiote race. Later on, they actually wobbled between whether or not he was related to the Venom symbiotes or not. I think they eventually decided it was a completely different alien thing altogether. But it was actually really kind of neat if you go back and look and see like this particular character. Look up Dreadface. It's a cool character. So otherwise, let's talk about the alien costume.
Yes.
Real quick.
Alien costume was fun. First showed up in Amazing Spider-Man number 252 as an alien costume. But really, the first appearance in the comics was, of course, Secret Wars.
So this is a fun little fact of publication misalignment. The thing is that technically speaking, publication-wise, the Spider-Man comic book had already picked up at the end of the Secret Wars miniseries. The Secret Wars miniseries had not finished yet. Yep. However, the Spider-Man comic book had moved into the next issue, so he actually appears on Earth in this suit first, a month or two, before you find out where he got it from in Secret Wars. So narratively speaking, in the context of the story, he actually got it earlier than that, while he was on the other alien planet that the Beyonder had created for him for the Secret Wars. His costume got destroyed. He found this machine that would fabricate whatever his imagination was, and he got the suit. And it wasn't until, of course, he made it back to Earth and was wearing it for a while and started going a little, like the Tobey Maguire movie, it started messing with his head and making him more aggressive.
Well, the really craziest aspect of it was that, of course, like, whenever he would go to sleep, he was dead tired all the time, because whenever he'd go to sleep, the costume would take over and, like, take him out for test drives and, like, actually have him fight crime while he was asleep inside the costume.
Right.
So, and then I guess he would, like, fill him with serotonin or something to keep him asleep while he was out and about using his body. So when Spider-Man found out about that, he freaks out.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And by this time, of course, they managed to start. He managed to figure out that Sonic's was his main weakness. At the same time this was going on, the character of Eddie Brock, who was just a pretty not good person, worked at the Daily Bugle and was a major kiss-ass to Jameson. Of course, Jameson always wants proof that Spider-Man's bad, and Eddie more or less fabricates evidence that Spider-Man was evil. Jameson publishes it. When Peter clears his name, he loses his job. Eddie Brock loses his job.
Yeah.
So he blames Peter Parker.
And he blames Peter Parker. So when, a rejected Eddie Brock, who hates Peter Parker, doesn't want to take responsibility for his life.
Yeah, just, isn't that how it is?
Going to this church to pray before he kills himself. It's the same church where Peter has used the bell to get the suit off of him, and the suit hates Spider-Man, so the suit hates Spider-Man, senses Eddie's hatred for Peter bonds together, and boom, this is where you have it.
This is where you first get Venom.
Now,
and that's going to be Amazing Spider-Man 299 as a cameo, and then that's April 8, 1988, and then number 300 in May of 1988 is first full appearance.
That's kind of the cool thing in the comic book. This is one of the things I liked in the comic book they haven't done in the movies, and what Greg and I both agree they should have done in the movies, is initially they don't show the bonding. They just show that the suit has met, the meet cute of the creatures or whatever. And it's more or less so something is happening and things are following Peter. Things are going wrong and he's having all this bad luck and planners are falling on him, all these things. And it's weird because he's like, my spider should be warning me about this stuff, but it's not. And it isn't until later after he's been stalked by Venom that Venom reveals himself or their selves. And it's because of the time bonded with Peter that the symbiote is able to mimic his powers. So Venom not only has the symbiote powers, but it now has a close approximation of Peter's powers, which means that Venom has the organic webs that are built out from itself. Now, just so you know this is always thought was kind of gross. Peter thought it was the coolest thing that the suit made its own web fluid, and he never had to produce any web fluid. But the thing is, the webs are not actually web fluid. The webs actually are made out of the symbiote. They're like dried bits of symbiote goo. It's like symbiote snot.
Okay.
That's why he's never got it. He's got a never-ending supply of this stuff. So I always thought that was kind of disgusting. But the fun thing is because of the connection with the spider sense, initially Venom was immune to Peter's spider sense, which meant he could sneak up on Peter at any time. And I remember that being the aspect of the character that I really liked, just because Peter's had this power that's protected him from all these things, and he's used it to great effect. And he finally gets a foe that, Peter's taken his spider sense for granted all these years. He's got a foe that can sneak up on him at any time. And I always that was one of my favorite things about Venom.
And I guess really quickly we should talk about all the people who created Venom, because it was actually not just one or two people. It was a whole bunch of people. Todd McFarlane, obviously, David Michelin, Roger Stern, Tom DeFalco, Mike Zeck, and Ron Frenz were all involved in the creation of Venom.
Yes.
Which is insane, that many talented people.
I'm going to throw in one more that's going to really throw you. This is with a fun little... I love the fun little trivia things. This is what we do here on the show, is the fun little trivia things. Okay, so Todd McFarlane gets credit for designing the look of Venom, but all he did was he created the bulkier version of Venom and gave him the claws and the face. One cool thing about that, Todd McFarlane modeled Venom's face after a shark's jaw that he saw. Like a bone display, I don't know if it was in a museum or something, but it was like a shark's jaw. And I always thought that was kind of cool. If you look at a jaw from a shark, that's, it looks really...
And especially looking at Todd McFarlane's art, you can...
Todd McFarlane really did play that part of it. But the black suit, now in the story, this is one thing that always throws people. The second Spider-Woman, Julia Carpenter, had a similar costume. It was black with the spider on it. She appeared first in the Secret Wars storyline.
And Peter Parker actually goes, wow, that's a cool costume.
He goes, that's a cool costume. And he even admits later on that he was inspired for the costume from the Spider-Woman. But the second fun thing about that suit is, originally it was supposed to be red. Okay, this is the fun thing. Originally it was a red spider, but the artists, the creators, they decided that the white looked a little bit more stark and interesting. But this design was a fan design that Marvel had put a contest in their magazines, and the original suit was designed by a fan who does not get credit. I think if you dig deep enough, you might be able to find out who actually did it, and he got paid $220. $220 as what he won for submitting the design of what is now the iconic Venom suit. So anyway, that's the fun little background thing.
I hate to tell you this, but sadly that sounds like Marvel.
That totally sounds like Marvel.
That
right.
sounds like Marvel.
Especially Marvel in the 80s. So,
yeah, and
anyway.
earlier.
And earlier, right? So,
that's a shame.
Isn't it though? But yeah, it's kind of an interesting little thing that they had it, and then they put Spider-Woman in. They took the design, made Spider-Woman, and then transferred it over to Peter. So.
Well, I mean, this is also a great example of why so many creators broke away from Marvel and created Image.
Yep. That's what led into it, including Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I associate Venom and McFarlane so closely is because, and this is definitely the early 90s, was the adjective list Spider-Man series, the just plain Spider-Man.
Yeah.
That Marvel, in order to keep him, actually gave him his own title. And it was the first time that McFarlane not only was drawing, but he had full-on writing duties, too.
Yeah.
And he had the whole Venom Spider-Man storyline and all the Carnage storylines and everything that led into Maximum Carnage and stuff like that. So that's why I kind of really, because that's what I really, the bulk of the Venom stories that I read were. So this is our first part.
And if you haven't read Secret Wars, I highly suggest it. It's a fun little mini-series.
Right? You might as well at this point.
Yeah, it's really kind of fun. It's not the greatest thing I've ever read, but it's fun. I mean, especially I love when Spider-Man takes on the X-Men.
Oh my gosh, awesome. Yes. So yeah, this is of course Spider-Man has interacted with some of the other characters up until the Secret Wars. But the cool thing about by the time Secret Wars come around, this is when you've got the giant-sized X-Men crew. The first time you get the international X-Men with Wolverine and Storm and Colossus and Nightcrawler and everything. So this is actually Peter's first interaction with this iteration of the X-Men. And so they're all new characters.
I don't think so. I'm pretty
it's
sure
the first time he ever fought Nightcrawler. Because they didn't know each other's powers, and it was really fun because they even make a comment.
Because I want to say there's some Marvel team-ups that they were together before Secret Wars.
Not in this. No, I've read. That was the first thing actually. This is the first actual comic book that my mother ever bought me.
Oh, nice.
It was for Christmas. I got the Secret War comic books, and they were actually surprised that Peter was able to keep up with Nightcrawler bouncing around on the walls, and they're because Nightcrawler has the wall crawling powers and everything. But yeah, the X-Men are like planning on like teaming up on their own and
teaming with the villains, actually.
With the villains, yeah. With Magneto's side, yeah.
Yeah. And so Spider-Man overhears them and he like takes them out to go and warn everybody. But of course, Professor X. But I hate that we just spoiled it.
Oh, okay. Well.
Yeah, I was about to say, wait.
Read it. You'll forget it by then anyway. But I like the Secret Wars. It was like one of the first things I ever read when I was a kid. Like it was really fun. So yeah. So this is like so. Anyway, so Venom is a villain in the comic books from then on, and I loved him as an adversary. I liked Venom best. I liked him because Eddie Brock was not a good person.
No,
Eddie Brock was irresponsible, blamed everybody else for his problems and his hardships, didn't take responsibility for his own actions and everything, and that aggression and that hatred pushed out into the world.
Well, not only that, I like the fact that there was more going on there than just being a straight-up villain, because, of course, a lot of what's going on with the symbiote is that the symbiote feels rejected because of what Peter Parker did.
Right.
And so Peter Parker kind of hints that he would be willing to have the symbiote back, and it causes a lot of, tension and a lot of, because the symbiote wants to belong to Peter.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
In fact, over the years, they frequently go back to that. There's been like, it's one of the McFarlane issues I loved is like they're at the beach and they're fighting and Peter's like, he's like, you know what? Come on, I'll take you back. And then and it's a battle of wills, and you literally see like Eddie and Spider-Man trying to like coax it, and it's like getting torn between them.
Like watching a dog go back and forth. Like, come on, you can do it.
Yeah, it's very much like that.
That is, oh my god, I would pay to see that.
It's really hysterical. Oh, that's a very, very commonly famous.
But of course, in the movies now, you're not going to get that at all.
Yeah, that's my biggest opportunity.
I mean, I've already said it before, and I'm pretty sure that everyone here agrees with me that basically the Venom movies are just a money grab.
Yeah.
They should have taken the time, tried to work with Marvel, and they should have actually done it like they did in the comics, where they like have Marvel next Avengers movie be the Secret Wars.
So, unfortunately, you won't be here for the day that we actually go into the history of Venom and other media. And
What do you mean? Unfortunately.
So, but just like we've been doing with our other movie reviews, we are going to do the history of Venom in other media. So make sure you catch us on Thursday, and we'll even talk about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3 and all the drama that went into that.
Hey,
so, but as far as Venom in the comic books, just to wrap him up in the comic in his villain days, So up until this point, he's more or less a villain. He's trying to basically take out his anger and frustration on Spider-Man. And revenge. And a lot of what made it really interesting is that he knew, because the symbiote had bonded with Peter, Venom now had the memories of the symbiote, so knew Peter's secret identity, he knew his loved ones, he knew his work, he knew where he was going to be, And so he was a super stalker.
Yeah.
That's what made him so cool and unique as a villain. He wasn't going out there to rob people. He wasn't going over to take out over the world. His literal raison d'etre was to stalk Peter and screw up his life.
Yeah.
And so I kind of
doesn't
really
take much to do that.
And right. And him and to Eddie Brock, again, a person who's not taking responsibility for his own action. He's got the conception that Peter's got the charmed life. He's got a job, and the beautiful woman is his, Mary Jane, his girlfriend, and everything like that. And in fact, he kidnaps MJ, and MJ just like really, really hates Venom, and in fact,
no fooling.
Yeah, at some point later on, after Venom is gone in the comics, even I think it's a Morbius storyline where Peter has to go back into the tunnels. It's the first time that Peter creates a cloth version. He actually, for those of you who don't know, Peter had a fabric version of the black costume because he's like, this is a little bit more stealthy. This is actually, he's like, in spite of the fact that Venom now has this look, he's like, this is like a useful look. And there's several good storylines where Peter is wearing this suit. Kraven's Last Hunt is one of the ones. Kraven the Hunter impersonates Spider-Man for a while wearing the cloth version of the suit that he takes from Peter. So it's a great design. I mean, you can't deny this was like one of the all-time best redesigns of a superhero. And people didn't like it at first, honestly. And I loved it. Like the first minute I saw it.
I mean, the first time I saw it, obviously I felt like, okay, it looks cool, but this isn't the red, blue, and then, the classic happy-go-lucky Spider-Man costume. And so, very much it's like, oh, they're making Spider-Man dark.
Yeah,
and that's what I didn't like because that's
such wow.
And that's basically where the comics were going at that time. Everything was going dark.
But
and
the cool thing about that was that they had a plan. I don't think they intended for him to be in that the whole time. There was an end game. It actually went somewhere, And, I mean, bad dancing aside, it was really good.
Well, the thing that I personally always loved about Spider-Man was that no matter how dark it got, there was still light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
There was still that element of hope and positivity at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's one of the things that came off of Stan Lee, and that's one of the things that came off of the early writers on Spider-Man, because, I mean, he had some really horrible situations happen to him, but he still kept upbeat. No matter how much he whined and all that kind of stuff, he still kept upbeat and he's still hopeful. And that's what that character is. That's the heart of that character. And when you take that away by saying, no, he's grown up now.
Maybe to me, I think I like the black suit because it was black and white and that stark contrast on the very yin-yang. To me, that kind of is what it was. It's like no matter how dark it was, there was that white part, that white,
that hopeful
contrast. So, but at the same time, like you were saying, though, everybody liked it. It was a dark character, so it did translate it to a villain very easily. Yeah. And so, Venom was an extremely popular villain. It was very ambiguous at certain aspects of his creation, which that led into the anti-hero, which
is our next episode.
So, thank you for joining us today. This is our little bit of start off with the appearance of Venom. We're going to catch you tomorrow. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us. You can go to bradsredweb.com to see upcoming stuff and events and things, and we'll catch you tomorrow.
Take care. Bye.